we are going to do a little bit different class. I got creative and I prepare a PDF.
I like it.
And today we are going to talk about anxiety and how to overcome anxiety. Anxiety, I'm going to share the screen with you guys. Anxiety is the suppression of emotions and feelings, and it turns usually into depression, which turns into disease, lack of ease, and degeneration and death eventually. So we want to be very mindful about anxiety. When we talk about anxiety, it shows up in many different ways, right? When to me, what anxiety means is basically as soon as you are worried or concerned, or your mind is preoccupied in things outside us where we have no control over, that it is anxiety. It means that makes your body uncomfortable. Okay, so let me move this thing over here. Okay, so remember, what we are going to talk about paradigms today, and I need you to understand how, and we are going to remind you how the mind works. We have our conscious mind, which is our reasoning mind, is the mind that we can control, the mind where we create thoughts and we create ideas, and we bring the ideas to an action and to a purpose. So we have this conscious mind, and then we have our subconscious mind, which is the mind that we have no control over. It's the mind that takes everything in, and we will break it down in the next in a little bit. But I want to make sure that we all are clear in the fact that we have a tendency to live our lives from outside in. Whatever is happening outside, that's how we feel. If we are in distress, if there is things going on outside that makes us happy, then we are happy. If there is a stress, then we are stressed. We absorb the environment and we make it ours. And we should be able to go to our mind to create the environment that we want to live in, the environment that we want to stay. And that will be living our life from inside out. When we talk about paradigms, when we talk about paradigm, and I want to talk about paradigm because it's very important for us to understand what paradigm is. Paradigm is a set of ideas in our mind that are based in our beliefs. And our beliefs are not always ours. Our beliefs that have been imprinted in our subconscious mind since we were born. I mean, not even that, even back farther from our ancestors' experiences, right? Like it goes through our DNA, and we are created out of that DNA, those two seeds that get together. And when we grow up, we absorb information and beliefs from basically 4 different sources, and that's another class. But those 4 sources, which is usually school, well, parents, school, community, and religion. Those 4 sources create our paradigms, and we base our living and our life in those beliefs. So when we are infants, our conscious mind is barely there. Our conscious mind, our subconscious mind is taking everything in. That's why when we talk about babies and when we talk about children, we say that they are like sponges because they absorb everything, right? So that's what we do when we are babies. We absorb everything, the good and the bad, unfortunately. So if we are raised in a family that they are you know, like they have problems, or they have struggles, and they have their own things that they have to deal all the time, and they don't know how. Those things kind of set you up for the kind of life that you are going to have, right? Like some people at school is bullied, and they will make them believe that they are not good enough, or they are ugly, or they are you know, not lovable or not likable, or whatever it is, right? And we grow up believing that that's a truth. And then in some things you grow up to it, but some things are not, are really, really stuck that. Like today I was talking to my son. My son is 25 years old, and he was saying he's very highly aware. And I am working with him because he wanted to change a very particular subject that he doesn't like about him, and he reacts too fast. And then he was saying that it's so hard to control that, and it completely is. I mean, when we are talking about changing paradigms, is so difficult because they are integrated so deeply, so rooted in our brain and our mind, that that's the first thing that comes out. And there is only one way that we can change it, and it is by repetition, by applying a new belief or a new pathway and repeating that neural pathway and that habit over and over again. That's how we learn. That's the only way. And that requires effort. Same thing happens with anxiety. What happens with anxiety, as strange as it may seem, is we totally have control over our thinking. Anxiety is managed. It happens because our thoughts, because we unconsciously, we choose anxiety at some level. We are not aware. That's what happens. That's why we call ignorance, right? When you have knowledge of what's going on, you can change it. But when you don't know, you don't even change. You don't even, I mean, like it belongs to the blind spot. You don't know it's there. You think that you have no control over there, right? So when we talk about things that we believe in, right? There are two things that we cannot prove, and we cannot, and we can control, and we cannot see. And both of them, one makes all the difference to the other. It's all completely different to the other. One is faith, and the other one is fear. You cannot see either of those. You just believe one thing or the other one, right? Like when you are in fear, you can make so much sense of why you have that fear, and you can find all the excuses and all the way around to stick with it, right? Well, that fear is what basically creates anxiety. Anxiety is just suppression of our emotions. When we suppress, we depress, and then we create disease, right? So anxiety is one of those things that the most people believe that is there to stay, like depression. When you have depression, I mean, that was very surprising for me in the beginning when I moved here in the United States. Like, for example, in Europe, well, at least in Spain, but I'm positive that is in Europe. In Europe, the standard operational procedure for doctors, psychiatrists, or neuropsychiatrists, if you go to the doctor with depression, the doctor will treat you for depression for 1.5 years. And if 1.5 years your depression hasn't improved, they are going to stop medication and look for another cause, because they understand that if there is no improvement, it means that there is something else going on. So depression is just a symptom. It's not an illness per se. It's the symptom of a set of problems that you created in your mind. And it's always reversible, always. There is only one thing that needs to happen. One is you have to make the decision to do it and the willingness to do it and stick with it, right? I mean, like I have I remember one particular client that I had a while back. She was, which in Europe this is unthinkable, but she was in 3 different type of antidepressants because she had depression for 28 years. So that meant that she had medication, depression, antidepressive for the first time, and they keep increasing that antidepressant, and that stopped working. So they add the second antidepressant, so they increase the second one, and to the point that that one wasn't enough, so they add another one and keep increasing to the top. So that to me was crazy, right? And what she wanted, it was quit medication. So in her brain, there is more dependency, emotional dependency to the medication than the fact that she needed the medication. Because really, after so many years, I mean, like, first off, your brain stops producing serotonin. That's the reason. I mean, that's what the antidepressants do. They are serotonin blockers, and they give you the serotonin that you need. So the brain becomes lazy. So it's really difficult for your brain to come up out of this, but eventually learns how to go back to release serotonin, because that's how, I mean, this is the way that the brain is designed. That's what the brain does, right? So, and we did, with her doctor, we start cutting off, and in 7 months, I think it was around 7 months, not even a year, she was off medication completely, and she was not with depression. So she didn't have depression. It's just she didn't know how to get rid of medication, and the doctor never talked about it because they are very concerned about, you know, like, for them to fall back. And because doctors are trained to fix the problem, to fix when there is a problem, we fix the problem, right? Like, instead of saying, let's go back to the root, let's see what we can do and let's examine once in a while. Is this, you know, like, the person changes and evolves and improves and does growth and development, and they know more things. So the same person is not exactly the same person in a few years, right? Like, we change and we evolve constantly. Like, things that I did a year and a half ago, today seem so simple. I think, oh my gosh, I could do so much better, right? So that's how it works. So when we are thinking about those two things that we cannot see and we believe in them, right, it is a choice. We get to choose where we want to believe, what we want to believe. Do we want to believe in faith, or we want to believe in fear? Because it's just about a matter of choice. And one thing will get you somewhere, the other one, it will keep you stagnant, and we're really difficult to, I mean, like, you will have trouble to managing your life in the future, at least to make it a happy one. So this is very this is how it looks in our brain when we have anxiety. When we have anxiety and depression, usually there is I mean, like, depression and anxiety are practically the same thing. It's two different symptoms of the same thing, right? And usually they go together. Who has one thing has the other one, in different levels, in more or less intensity, but that's how it works for almost everybody. So when our brain, when we have anxiety, it means that our body releases cortisol, period. Our body is in distress, and that's the stress hormone. Is the stress gets to the point that cortisol gets to the point that damages the brain. How that happens is very interesting. Is cortisol gets stuck basically in two tissues in our body. Gets stuck in the muscle tissue, is the one that helps us to fight or flight, or we fight or we run. And for that, we need our muscle tissue really strong. And cortisol gets there for you to react really quickly, right? And the other place where the cortisol gets stuck is in our fatty tissue. Our brain is practically practically 90% fat. So when it gets to the brain, it gets everywhere, but when it gets to the brain, what it does is decreases the quality of our white matter. And this is how it looks, a brain with anxiety and with depression and over stress, right? So it does lack white matter. So imagine how different it is if you realize that you can reverse anxiety, that you have the power of the choice to say, I'm making the decision today that I want to get rid of this. And of course, it will take training. The most of the time, or 100% of the time, what happens is we need somebody to help, some guidance, right? We cannot do everything by ourselves. But if you make the decision and you have the willingness to do it, you can get rid of anxiety, okay? Before we finish, I want us to listen to this. So what we are, I'm going to stop sharing the thingy. So what we want to realize is how our mind, the power of our mind, how easy or how difficult we can make our life, right? Like we can choose, believe in our faith, believe that everything will be fine, because guess what, the most of the time everything is fine, right? And it all depends is where you put your attention, where you put your focus. Are you paying attention to what was wrong of this or what was right? Because everything has positive and negative. That's the law of polarity. It's just it's one of the laws of nature. Or it has good and it has bad. Where are you putting your attention? That's what is going to stand out the most for you, right? And one can create fear, can create doubt, or the other one makes you happy and create joy, right? Creates understanding, creates knowledge. When we one of the things that I find a little bit I find interesting is when I do these kind of things, when I talk to clients, when I talk to students about the things that are really helpful. One of the challenges that people has the most is be consistent, right? Is yes, I'm super excited, I want to do this, and then 2 days later, because it's work and we haven't created the habit yet, the excitement and the faith is fading away, and then we go back to the old paradigm, because what happens is the paradigm is going to be there. It's just really strong. It's really, really strong, and will kick in as soon as your shields are down. So what we want to think is one day at the time. Is today I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to live my day today. And tomorrow again, and tomorrow again, until the day that it sticks. When we are talking about controlling our thinking, there is one book, The Science of Getting Rich, I think it is Wallace Wattles, and he puts it really well. He says, this is the job, is the most difficult work that you have ever done and you will ever do, right? Like controlling your thinking is something that you have to do now and now and now and now and all the time, because it kicks in all the time, right? Like something doesn't work, oh my gosh, we are in trouble, right? And no, we don't have to. It's just, if you put too much energy on that one, of course, if you are thinking that you have anxiety, that you are an anxious person, you will have more anxiety, because your energy and your thinking is put on that. One of the things that it was most frustrating for me, and because when I was working at the behavioral practice, it was very frustrating, because we were working with a lot of couple students or young people and children. the tendency of the doctors, I guess, over their lives, their patients' life, they call them that they were depressed. You are depressed. How is your depression, right? So what happened with that is they believe that they were depressed. And that's difficult to get rid of that label. You label yourself as a depressed person. You have depression, you are depressed, so you are ill, you are sick, you have a problem, you have a sickness, right? And it doesn't have to be that way. You can reverse that. That's not something that, like, oh, I have a cat and I have to sue it, or I have an illness in my body, my liver is not working, we have to fix it. No, it is up here. It is where you cannot touch. You believe you have it, or you don't believe you have it. You choose to fix it, or you don't choose. You know, like it's up to you. It's totally up to you, that one, right? And that's what's so difficult for people, right? Like, is they believe they have no control over their minds. And we all do. I do, and everybody does, right? If I do it, everybody can do it, right? And believe me, I do it every single day. My thoughts are constantly monitored. And one of the things that because I have to work constantly on that one, because it kicks in. The old one kicks in constantly, right? Like just like everybody else. The funny thing is, when I work with my son, because of course he knows me, he is 25, so he knows me for 25 years. And he always says, you have changed so much over the years. And I say, yeah, it's true. It's true. I change all the time, and it takes a lot of effort and work. And then he looks at me with that face like, oh my gosh, you did such a great job. So it's you know, like, it's really cool for somebody from the outside, because we don't see it that much in ourselves. But somebody from the outside says, no, you have been improving a lot. I mean, I had a lot of no mental problems, but yes, I had brain problem, and that caused a lot of emotional problems. And I was in a very abusive marriage. My son's father was very abusive, not physically, but emotionally. And that caused a big dent in my self-esteem. So then you change your self-image. You, instead of seeing a super smart, very powerful, a strong woman than I was, because I had a father that told me my entire life that I was super powerful and very strong and I could do whatever I wanted. That other person flipped. And for longest time, I blamed him for that. And that was totally on me, right? I allowed him to make me believe that. I believe it and I stick with it for a while. Then I change. But, you know, like it happens. We give power at the outside world to change the way we see ourselves. And there is no excuse for that. That is not a good thing. Okay. Any questions so far?
No questions. It's just very timely in the place where I'm at in my life right now and doing some work on myself. So it's
awesome.
Yeah. It's nice to have that reinforced.
Yes. So it is, when we are, you have to think that if you don't control the environment always controls you. The environment is very powerful. The outside world is very powerful. And one of the things that we need to realize is that one is, you get to change the way that you live your life. You get to change the way that you live your life, and you get to change the way that you see yourself in that life, right? Like, one of the things that I've been working the most lately is in self-image. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about self-image, because it is very, very important. You know, like, it's not self-esteem. It's not about the self-esteem, because, you know, like, better or worse, as an adult, your self-esteem usually increases and improves and you do better. But self-image is have a clear image of who you want to be and live your life today that way, the way that you want to be, right? If you want to be impeccable, if you want to be professional, if you want to be, you know, whatever looks like for you, right? Physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, All those things have to be aligned for you to thrive in the kind of person that you want to become.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make it happen right away, and that will get you where you want to be, because what happens is what we create out of our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if we create, or we see ourselves and we repeat ourselves, we are not good enough, or I failed, or I didn't know how to do better, or whatever it is that we are telling ourselves all the time, this is what we create. We create more of that, right? So one trick that helps a lot, so because what happens is you cannot delete a negative thought. That doesn't happen. You have to create a new one. You have to create a positive thought to overpower the negative one, and repeat that one constantly, right? So sometimes if you are stressed, if you are too busy, if it's in the middle of the night and you wake up, that one is a very tricky one. When in the middle of the night, if you wake up and your mind runs away towards the negative, you are done, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that helps me a lot, if that happens, it is I repeat a mantra. So I don't have to think. So because when I go to think positive, you still have to think. So your mind is still working. So then you don't go back to sleep. What you want to do is go back to sleep, because you will need you to sleep. And the way that works the best for me is repeating a mantra. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a blank word.
Yeah.
Just up there constantly. Like working in my favor, and also creates a really nice vibration, and you fall back to sleep, so you don't have to think on anything else. And when the thoughts come, you go back to the mantra. When you catch yourself, thoughts will come, go to the mantra, right? Yeah. So this is a nice way of doing it.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to do with this one, because this class, it doesn't seem that it's going to be that long. If you will have any questions.
There's not as many people, so not as much discussion.
Yes, but I just want to make sure that I know you understand, but if you have any questions, just
oh, sure. Yeah.
You can interrupt me anytime.
Okay, thanks.
So one of the things that I never tell you or ask you to do the I wanna if you want, I want to offer you a free consultation if there is anything in particular that you want to work on, and I can help you with tricks, things, tools, some tools that you can start working on, right? I find that is always useful, because I will give you at least a place where to start controlling that, some books that you can read and things like this. So one of the books that help with self-image is Psycho-Cybernetics. This is a book that was written by Matthew Maltz, I think. I want to say it's Matthew. I think so. Maltz. Psycho-Cybernetics. And it's a book about
Maxwell Maltz.
Yeah. Maxwell Maltz. In YouTube is recorded the full book, and you don't even have to read it. You can listen to it. It's not one of those books that need a study, but like if you keep listening, it's really good. It's a really good book for self-image, to improve and have a good training for that. Okay. There are many books. I mean, like the books that I'm studying, and the group that we have on Monday, which is a study group, and it is about the science of the mind. Those books are much deeper and need explanation. This one is very easy. It's easy peasy for you to do. So, so the last thing that I want to do is to listen the recording of the chapter on serenity. This comes from it's Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor is my mentor, and Bob Proctor reads the chapter and is really nice. Serenity is from the book As a Man Thinketh, from James Allen. It's an old book, so the speaking is a little bit, but Bob Proctor does such a great job with the reading. So to finish the class today, we are going to put this one up there.
Awesome.
Okay. And we have
well, first I just thought that they were very unattractive slob.
Okay.
Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It's the result of long and patient effort in self-control. Its presence is an indication of ripened experience and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operations of thought. A man becomes calm in the measure that he understands himself as a thought-evolved being. For such knowledge necessitates the understanding of others as a result of thought. And as he develops a right understanding and sees more and more clearly the internal relations of things by the actions of cause and effect, he ceases to fuss and fume and worry and grieve. He remains poised, steadfast, serene. The calm man, having learned how to govern himself, knows how to adapt himself to others, and they in turn reverence his spiritual strength and feel that they can learn from him and rely upon him. The more tranquil a man becomes, the greater is his success, his influence, his power for good. Even the ordinary trader will find his business prosperity increase as he develops a greater self-control and equanimity. For people will always prefer to deal with a man whose demeanor is equable. The strong, calm man is always loved and revered. He's like a shade-giving tree in a thirsty land, or a sheltering rock in a storm. Who does not love a tranquil heart, a sweet-tempered, balanced life? It does not matter whether it rains or shines, or what changes come to those possessing these blessings, for they are always sweet, serene, and calm. The exquisite poise of character, which we call serenity, is the last lesson of culture. It is the flowering of life, the fruitage of the soul. It is precious as wisdom, more to be desired than gold, yea, than even fine gold. How insignificant mere money-seeking looks in comparison with the serene life, a life that dwells in the ocean of truth, beneath the waves, beyond the reach of the tempests, in the eternal calm. How many people we know who sour their lives, who ruin all that is sweet and beautiful by explosive tempers, who destroy their poise of character and make bad blood. It is a question whether the great majority of people do not ruin their lives and mar their happiness by lack of self-control. How few people we meet in life who are well balanced, who have that exquisite poise which is characteristic of the finished character. Yes, humanity surges with uncontrolled, is tumultuous with ungoverned grief, is blown about by anxiety and doubt. Only the wise man, only he whose thoughts are controlled and purified, makes the winds and the storms of the soul obey him. Tempest-tossed souls, wherever you may be, under whatever conditions you may live, know this: in the ocean of life, the isles of blessedness are smiling, and the sunny shore of your ideal awaits your coming. Keep your hands firmly on the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does but sleep. Wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought, mastery. Calmness is power. Say to your heart, peace, be still.
That was so lovely.
I hope you enjoyed this video. We put a lot of good information up here, and it causes everything in your life to get better. If you'd like us to notify you every time we put a new video.
No. Say that again, Alicia. I lost you.
I first said that was so lovely, and then I had to go open my door because it's very warm.
But it was nice, right?
It was very nice. Yeah.